they say peace is earned. But out here, it felt borrowed. When I first moved to this lake, the silence was so deep, it almost had a heartbeat. After 2 decades of service, sand, smoke, orders, and noise. All I wanted was quiet. Just me, the water, and the cabin my late uncle left me. No rules, no meetings, no neighbors. With opinions for 3 days. It was exactly that. Then the sandals came. A scratch. A scratch. That sound became the beginning of every mistake she made. She came marching down my gravel path like she owned the place, a pastel storm in pearls and perfume. "Good morning," she said. Too loud, too cheerful, the kind of cheer people weaponize. Skyler Campbell, president of Lakeview Serenity HOA. She said it like I should salute. I set my hammer down slow. President of what? She smiled, like she was auditioning for a commercial. The Homeowners Association. This lake is community property, and we just love meeting new residents. I nodded. Then you'll love this. I'm not part of your community. That froze her smile mid. She blinked once, pen tapping her clipboard like a countdown. Oh, the cabin. Right. Technically outside the zone, but we've always considered your shoreline part of our family. Technically, I said, families don't trespass. The air went still. Birds stopped. Even the lake seemed to hold its breath. She laughed it off. Oh, boundaries. Don't worry. We're all about respecting them. Then she clicked her pen. Now, I'll just schedule your dock for community use. I raised an eyebrow. No. She blinked. Sorry. Eastside. No. You don't schedule anything here. This property doesn't belong to Lakeview Serenity. It belongs to me. The color drained from her face just enough to see the truth behind the smile. Well, we'll see about that, she said, voice tighter, shoes turning toward the road. As she left, her SUV idled behind her like backup. Gravel crunched under her sandals, like a threat disguised as retreat. That night, I found a flyer tucked under a rock by my mailbox. Welcome, new neighbor. Guidelines you'll love. Primera rea de itonce, then tossed it in the fire barrel. As it curled into ash, I realized something people like her don't stop at your gate. They test it. Then they test your patience. And when that fails, they test your silence. The next morning, I brewed a black cup of coffee and stared out over the lake. Still. Calm. Deceptive. Peace doesn't last because people like Skyler can't stand seeing someone else have it. So I made a promise. If she wanted to test boundaries, I'd show her what real ones looked like. If you've ever dealt with a neighbor who thinks your property is their playground, hit subscribe, because you're going to want to see how this ends. By sunset, I was already planning, not revenge. Something smarter. I'd learned a long time ago that a fight isn't won with anger. It's won with patience, proof, and preparation. And I still had all three. The hammer hit wood again that evening. Steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat, rebuilding itself. Skyler might have left smiling, but she didn't realize she'd already lost the first battle. Because I wasn't just fixing my dock, I was laying the foundation for her downfall. And when she came back, and I knew she would, I'd be ready. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because next time, that bell she ignored, it's going to ring. Some people mistake kindness for weakness until they hear the sound of a bell meant just for them. The morning after Skyler's first visit, I woke to fog rolling off the lake, and a strange quiet that felt heavier than usual. I brewed my coffee, watched the mist hover, and started working on what I called my peace project. Steel gates. One at the road, one at the lakeside trail. Nothing fancy. No barbed wire, no warnings painted in red. Just 2 silent statements that said, "Stop here." And on the lakeside gate, I hung a small brass bell. The bell wasn't decoration. It was a signal. Every man who's seen conflict knows you need an early warning system, even in paradise. When that bell rang, it wouldn't be wind or wildlife. It would be her. By the 3rd day, I was proven right. Chima? A single, perfect note cut through the air. I looked up from my workbench, smiled, and muttered, "Welcome back." Through the fog came Skyler Campbell, clipboard in hand, perfume thick enough to declare war on mosquitoes. "Benjamin," she called, pretending surprise. "Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "You are," I said, still sanding a board. She laughed, lightly, like we were old friends. "We're organizing a community brainstorming session next week about improving lakeshore harmony. You should join us." "Pretty sure I'm not on your mailing list," I said. "Oh, don't worry," she chirped. "I already added you. Everyone contributes here. You're part of our ecosystem now." "Contributes?" I asked. "You mean gets milked?" Her smile flickered. "Benjamin, I just noticed your new gates. Very fortress. Cheek, don't you think it sends the wrong message?" "Depends on who's reading it," I said. She clicked her pen. "It would be such a shame if this lake lost its sense of unity." "You mean the unity that leaves beer cans in my weeds?" That one landed. Her eyes twitched behind those glasses, but she recovered quick. "We're neighbors," she said softly. "Cooperation makes life easier." "I've met my neighbors," I replied. "That's why I built the gates." Her sunglasses tilted just enough for me to see the spark of control under her calm. She nodded once and said, "We'll see about that." When she left, I watched through the camera feed as she crouched beside my gate, taking photos of the hinges, the lock, even the bell. That night, I opened a small black notebook and wrote, "Entry 1-940 hours. Attempted manipulation disguised as conversation. Entry to 1005 hours. Photographed conclusion, countermeasures pending." It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. Document the nonsense. And one day, it becomes proof. 2 days later, reinforcements arrived, 2 women in matching polos and smiles that could strip paint. "Good afternoon," one said brightly. "We're from the Lakeview Serenity Volunteer Committee." I nodded. "Condolences. We're just preparing for next weekend's shoreline cleanup," the shorter one said. "We'll need full access to your dock." "Not possible," I replied. "The community voted," the other said. I didn't. The pause that followed was long enough for the bell to chime again. "Sir," one of them said, "cooperation is mandatory for—" I pointed at the sign on my fence. "Private property. This means you—" They left in offended silence. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Unknown number?" "It would really help community morale if you left the gate unlocked." SC. I sent back a photo of the padlock with the caption, "Morale remains secure. Subscribe if you've ever dealt with someone who can take I ain't, because what she did next, you won't believe it." By week's end, flyers appeared in every mailbox, big bold letters. "Help preserve our shared lake access." Under it was a photo of my dock, my property, captioned "Traditionally open to all." Traditionally. My patience was longer, too. Not anymore, so I made a new sign. "Private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted, including clipboard carriers." The next afternoon, Skyler came back with backup. 2 women in matching visors, and a man who looked like he ironed his jeans for intimidation. They stood like a suburban tribunal. "Benjamin," she said, "we need to talk about optics." "Optics?" I said. "You mean trespassing in high definition?" Her smile cracked just a little. "You're making this difficult." "I'm making it clear," I said. Her tone hardened. "If you insist on closing off community access, we'll have to file a notice of obstruction." "Obstruction of what?" I asked. "Community harmony," I laughed. "Not a felony yet." She didn't find it funny, but I wasn't laughing at her. I was laughing because I'd just realized something important. She wasn't just showing up to annoy me. She was scouting. Every visit, every smile, every photo. It wasn't confrontation. It was reconnaissance. And next time she came back, she wouldn't be walking away empty-handed. That night, as the sun bled over the water, I stood on my dock and whispered to the stillness, If she wants a lesson, I'll give her one she won't forget. The lake stayed quiet, reflecting only orange light and the faint ripple of the bell swaying in the wind. But the next time it rang, it wouldn't just be a warning. Subscribe now, because what comes next makes that bell sound like a countdown. Every war has a turning point. Mine began the moment I decided to stop defending and start teaching. Skyler wanted access. She wanted control. And she wanted an audience. Fine. I'd give her all three at once. That night, I sat in the boathouse with the single overhead bulb flickering like an interrogation lamp. My hands moved automatically, tightening bolts, checking circuits, running cables beneath the deck planks. The air smelled of lake water and machine oil. At the center of it all sat my creation, an old electric craft I'd been rebuilding for years. Matte black, silent motor, cheapy as guided, sleek as a shadow. I called her Ghost. Originally, she was my fishing companion, a quiet escape that didn't disturb the herons. But that night, she became something else. I upgraded her onboard system, rerouted the circuits, and linked everything to my phone. The final addition was a fail-safe loop mode. Simple in theory, poetic in practice. If someone started the engine without my authorization code, Ghost would lock all manual controls and circle the lake in slow, perfect figure eights until her battery ran dry. No danger, no damage, just a long, dizzying reminder that actions have consequences. The next morning, I left the cabin for town. Gates closed, locks tight, everything normal. But I left one thing different. The lakeside gate wasn't quite latched, just enough to whisper invitation. Skyler couldn't resist invitations. Half an hour into my drive, my phone buzzed once. Then again, alert, gate breach, motion detected. Another ping, unauthorized ignition attempt. Loophole initiated. I pulled over at a hill overlooking the lake and opened the feed. There she was, Skyler Campbell, in full mission mode. Clipboard gone, cardigan traded for a hoodie, hair pulled back tight. She looked like a teenager, sneaking out after curfew. She climbed into my boat, pressed the start key, and smiled as the motor hummed to life. For 3 seconds, she thought she'd won. Then the console flashed red. Access denied. Autonov enabled, the throttle froze, the wheel locked, and Ghost drifted away from the dock, sliding into a perfect loop. Skyler's face changed from triumph to confusion, then panic. She pressed buttons, tugged the wheel, waved her arms. The boat ignored her. I zoomed in on the feed and took a slow sip of coffee. She shouted something to Ward. Sure, probably this is unacceptable. Her voice didn't carry over the water, but her gestures did. She pointed, yelled, spun, stumbled, and Ghost just kept looping smooth, calm, 10 minutes later, she was pacing in circles, hair whipping in the wind. At minute 20, she sat down, exhausted. At minute 30, I texted Deputy Howard, the local officer I knew well. Unauthorized use of private vessel in progress. Intruder unharmed, but trapped. GPS coordinates attached. He replied within seconds. Copy that. Don't intervene. We're on our way. Subscribe if you've ever dreamed of karma showing up on Timeby, 'cause it's happening right now. By the time I drove back, 2 sheriff's cruisers were parked by my gate. Deputy Howard leaned against his car, watching the lake like it was theater. "She doing okay out there?" he asked. "Depends how you define okay," I said. "She's safe, but she's learning." He grinned. "Lesson plan seems solid." They called in the county fireboat to bring her back when Ghost's battery hit 20%. 45 minutes later, she floated to shore, soaked, pale, furious. Deputy Howard helped her off the deck. "Mom," he said calmly, "you're trespassing. I was ensuring community safety." She barked, clinging to the railing. "Looked more like you were sightseeing," he said. She pointed at me. "He trapped me." This was a setup. Howard raised an eyebrow. "Boat logs say otherwise. Autonov system, standard safety feature." Primera shrugged. "Guess she learned something about boundaries." They loaded her into the cruiser, still shouting about bylaws and boating ordinances. As the car disappeared up the road, Howard handed me my phone. "Got your footage backed up?" "3 copies," I said. HOA, Godda, might call it performance art. When the lake finally settled, I sat on my dock beside Ghost. Her hull dripped silver trails into the water. I patted her side and whispered, "Good girl." Mission complete. For the first time in weeks, the air felt light again. No clipboards, no flyers, just the hum of quiet justice. But I knew better than to think it was over. People like Skyler don't retreat, they reload. The next morning, the entire lake knew what happened. By noon, there were paddleboarders floating nearby, pretending to stretch while filming my dock. By sunset, a post appeared online. HOA president, trapped by recluses' boat abuse of technology or justified payback. It had 40 comments in an hour, half of them cheering. The one that mattered came from Deputy Howard himself. Just a single comment. "Loop mode. Effective." I screenshotted it and smiled. "Next time, she won't come with a boat. She'll come with lawyers." Subscribe if you think peace deserves protection, because the real fight hasn't even started. Every storm begins quiet hand. This one started with a letter. 3 days after the boat incident, I found an envelope wedged in my mailbox. From Mitchell, Green, and Associates. Subject line: Notice of pending civil action. I didn't open it right away. I already knew who sent it. Skyler Campbell, the woman who'd just spent 45 minutes looping across the lake in my boat, wasn't going to lick her wounds and move on. She was going to escalate. By the end of the week, I was sitting in a beige conference room that smelled like coffee and paperwork. Across from me sat Skyler, hair perfectly curled, sunglasses on indoors, and a stainless steel water bottle gripped like a trophy. Beside her was her lawyer, young, slick, and overconfident. Across from them sat me and my attorney, Donna Carter, former JAG officer, calm as a storm that's already decided who it's going to hit. The mediator cleared her throat. "All right, Miss Campbell, Mr. Green, you may begin." Her lawyer leaned forward. "My client suffered emotional distress due to Mr. Reed's reckless use of a dangerous device, a motorized boat equipped with unauthorized remote systems." Donna smiled faintly. "Unauthorized by whom? The Coast Guard or her imagination?" Skyler's jaw tightened. "He humiliated me. He trapped me, Donna. Now that, on your neighbor's private boat, which you boarded without permission." "I thought it was community property." Skyler shot back. Donna slid a USB drive across the table. "And yet, here's your voice on camera saying, 'Technically it's not HOA property, but we treat it like one.'" The mediator blinked. Skyler froze. Her lawyer coughed. "That statement was taken out of context." Donna leaned forward. "Then you'll love this context." She pressed play on a short clip. Skyler's voice filled the room. "Technically it's not, but we like to think of it as part of the community." Followed by her entering my dock, climbing aboard, and hitting the ignition. Donna paused the video. "Intent matters," she said softly. She wasn't trapped. She was trespassing. The lawyer tried again. "The issue is emotional harm." Donna flipped open another folder. "And here we have GPS logs proving the vessel never exceeded safety limits, a sheriff's report confirming no injuries, and a Coast Guard compliance certificate. Oh, and a life jacket size medium. Same as Miss Campbell's." The mediator cleared her throat. "Mr. Green, are you maintaining your complaints?" He looked at Skyler. She looked back, pale and silent. "Yes," she whispered. Donna smiled. "Then we'll be countering with trespass, attempted theft, and defamation. I have metadata proving the HOA post about my client was uploaded from Miss Campbell's personal phone." The room went silent. Even the air conditioner seemed to pause out of respect. 15 minutes later, it was over. "Case dismissed." Skyler's lawyer muttered something about reviewing options, which everyone in the room knew meant we lost. Outside the courthouse, Donna slid on her sunglasses and grinned. "You make enemies the way other men make coffee," she said, efficiently. I laughed. Old habit. She nodded. Just remember, people like her don't quit. If you've ever had someone dig their own hole while blaming you for the shovel, hit subscribe because you're about to see karma work overtime. By the following week, the county court posted the ruling online. Case dismissed. With prejudice, meaning she couldn't try again. Within hours, the HOA's group chat leaked screenshots of the verdict. Comments exploded. Fina shitted come in, Lupa mode for president. One post stood out, a message from Cheryl Bennett, one of the quieter HOA members. Justice takes a boat ride. It vanished an hour later, probably deleted by Skyler herself. But not before I saved it. Then, the real storm hit. An anonymous letter began circulating through the neighborhood. Inside, every questionable thing Skyler had done in the past 3 years. From stealing someone's lawnmower for community use to rerouting HOA funds for decorative clipboard holders. I didn't write it. I didn't have to. By Friday, a petition appeared. Remove Skyler Campbell as HOA president. It passed unanimously. When I got my copy, it came stapled to a handwritten note. Dear Mr. Reed, while we don't condone trespassing, thank you for doing what none of us could. Cheryl. For the first time in months, I smiled without suspicion. Across the lake, Skyler's house went dark for 3 straight nights. Then a for sale sign appeared in her yard. Within 48 hours, she was gone. No announcement, no goodbyes. Just silence. And for a man like me, silence was everything I'd been fighting for. But peace never lasts long. Not when it's built near people who can't stand watching you enjoy it. Subscribe now because the lake may be calm, but something new is moving beneath the surface. Peace doesn't end with noise. It ends with paperwork. I thought Skyler's departure would close the chapter. The for sale sign stood like a gravestone for chaos. And 4 weeks, the lake finally sounded the way it shoots off wind. Quiet waves, no sandals on gravel. But people like Skyler don't leave peace behind. They mail it back to you with a stamp and a legal heading. A month later, I got another notice. Campbell vs. Red de Civil. Herein scheduled, she'd filed again. Different claim this time, systematic harassment and emotional distress. When Deputy Howard called to warn me, I nearly laughed. Let me guess, I said. She's claiming my trees looked at her funny. Howard chuckled. Close. She says your security cameras follow her car. They point at the road, I said. She calls that psychological intimidation. Premedicide. Tell her it's optical coincidence. The hearing took place in a small county courtroom designed for traffic tickets and bad divorces. Skyler arrived early. Of course, dove gray blazer, pearls, and her trademark sunglasses indoors. Again, her new lawyer was a woman this time. Patricia Horn, sharp suit, sharper attitude. Donna Carter, my lawyer, looked relaxed, a single folder on the desk in front of her. When the judge entered, Skyler sprang to her feet like it was a stage cue. Your Honor, she began, voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. I was simply ensuring the safety of our community when Mr. Reed's weaponized boat entrapped me on the lake. I was terrified. I could have drowned. The judge raised an eyebrow. Was there any water in the boat, Ms. Campbell? No, but the possibility. Did the defendant threaten you in any way? She hesitated. Not directly. The judge nodded. Continue. Skyler did for 20 straight minutes. Words like trauma, manipulation, and technological ambush filled the air. Her lawyer nodded at everyone like she was at church. When she finished, Donna stood slowly, pressed play on her tablet, and let the courtroom speakers come alive. From the tablet came Skyler's own, voice clear, sharp, and panicked. No, stop turning. I'm the president. A few laughs escaped before the judge banged his gavel. Donna paused the clip. As you can hear, my client didn't endanger Ms. Campbell. The system clearly states it's an automated safety feature. She wasn't trapped, she was protected from herself. Patricia leapt up. Objection, dramatization. Overruled. said the judge, not even glancing up. Donna handed him the GPS logs next. Here's the path, speed, and safety. Limittal standard, all legal. And here, she added, is footage of Ms. Campbell entering my client's dock without consent. The judge flipped through the pages slowly. Ms. Campbell, he said, were you invited onto the defendant's property? Skyler's voice faltered. I was acting in the interest of the community. Answer the question. No. And did you attempt to operate his boat? Her jaw tightened. Yes, but that's enough, he said. You may sit. Donna wasn't finished. She slid one last document across the desk, a printed screenshot of Skyler's deleted HOA post, the one that read, this is what happens when neighbors weaponize technology, Your Honor. Donna said. This was uploaded from Miss Campbell's account, using her home Wi-Fi. My client was portrayed as a violent recluse. The sheriff's office had 2 field nuisance calls because of it. That's defamation. The judge leaned back. Ms. Campbell, did you write this? It was emotional. She snapped. He nodded slowly. Most things are. But emotion doesn't override property law. One strike of the gavel, and it was over. Case dismissed with prejudice. Skyler went pale, then red, then silent. Donna packed her folder. That was fun, she whispered. Next time, let's bring popcorn. Outside the courthouse, Cheryl Bennett was waiting, arms crossed and smiling faintly. Guess she didn't make it easy on herself, Cheryl said. She never does, I answered. That night, I took Ghost out on the lake for the first time since the chaos. The water reflected the stars, like it had missed me. For the first time in months, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. If you've ever stood your ground and watched karma do the rest, hit subscribe, 'cause peace isn't a gift. It's earned. Across the lake, Skyler's porch light was off for good. No movement. No noise. No more HOA memos floating across the shoreline. Just stillness. But deep down, I knew I'd only won the battle. Because peace, real peace, it's not what you get. It's what you defend. And people like Skyler, they always test the defenses one more time, just to see if you're still paying attention. Subscribe now, because in this world, even silence has a sequel. They say quiet is the sound of victory, but out here, it's more like a warning that something new is coming. Weeks passed. The leaves along the shoreline turned amber and gold. For the first time in years, the lake belonged only to itself. No clipboards, no flyers, no pastel armies marching in sandals, just the hum of wind and the soft echo of water lapping against the dock. I'd gotten used to the stillness. Coffee in the morning, fishing in the afternoon, tinkering with ghosts by lantern light. Even Dennis the raccoon, that raided my trash every night, had become part of the rhythm. He didn't argue, didn't take pictures, didn't post community guidelines. Just lived. And after months of battles fought with words, traps, and patience, that was enough. Then, one day, an envelope arrived. No logo this time, no legal heading. Inside was a letter in neat, looping handwriting. Dear Mr. Reed, while the HOA cannot officially condone your methods, many of us quietly applauded them. You reminded us that rules without respect are just noise. Enjoy the peace you've earned. Sen Barrio. I pinned it to the fridge beside my fishing permit, a trophy in ink and paper. But the best part wasn't the letter, it was the silence that followed. Skyler's house sat dark for weeks, and by the time winter rolled in, a new family had moved in. No HOA meetings, no drama, just polite nods across the lake. For the first time, I believed peace might actually stay. When the lake froze solid, I'd sit by the stove at night, watching the snow fall over the water like a blanket finally laid over an old wound. Sometimes I'd get postcards from neighbors' short notes, simply thanks. Lake's quieter now. We still laugh about loop mode. You did what we couldn't. It felt strange, being called a hero for doing nothing more than defending my peace. But that's the thing about boundaries, they don't make you bitter, they make you whole. When spring thawed the lake, I upgraded Ghost again. New cameras, stronger sensors, better encryption. Not because I expected another Skyler, but because peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's preparation in disguise. And then one morning, as the first light hit the water, I took Ghosts out again. No purpose, no plan. Just drifting. The engine hummed softly beneath my boots, a sound that almost matched my heartbeat. Halfway across the lake, I cut the power. Silence. Not empty, and every ripple felt like a memory. Every gust of wind a lesson. For the first time, I realized the truth I'd been avoiding. All those years in uniform, all those battles fought on foreign ground, of them compared to this one. Because this war wasn't about land or orders. It was about peace itself. And sometimes peace has to be defended not with guns or laws, but with wit, patience, and a boat named Ghost. If you've ever had someone try to take what's yours, your calm, your space, your silence, remember peace. You don't need to shout to fight. You just need to stand firm and let time do the talking. Now, the only sound at night is the rustle of Dennis in the trash and the low hum of Ghost's charger. No footsteps on gravel, no clipboards in the dark, no battles waiting at the gate. I raise my beer to the fading sun and whisper into the breeze. You don't mess with a man's silence, because silence, once earned, becomes sacred. On Tiss Lake, it finally remembers who it belongs to. If you've made it this far, hit subscribe, because every story here ends the same way. Peace restored, karma served, and one less clipboard in the world.